it's like you taking an invisible punch and you just like bouncing back. You know, like those cartoons, it's like somebody just like bang, 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 bang. In today's video, we're going to talk about how to dissolve your ego. So I know when I first say this, you're probably thinking, dissolve my ego? How do I do that? Why would I want to do that? So hopefully by the end of this video, you will understand the importance of why you would want to dissolve your ego. I will start off by saying we cannot, some people refer to this as ego death, but we can't really completely dissolve our ego. We need our ego. We need our ego to survive. We need our ego to move around in this universe. We do need parts, if you will, of our ego. But there are parts of the ego that we need to dissolve or let go. For instance, if you've come to a point where you feel like, hey, you know, I don't want to separate myself any longer. For instance, if you're one of these people where you hold your religion, all these different beliefs that we have, all these different beliefs that we grew up thinking were kind of like who we are. You know, my parents were Baptist, so that I'm a Baptist. You know, my nationality is that, you know, I'm an American, so I'm an American, right? And so when you start to dissolve your ego, you start to dissolve all of those beliefs, your race, your religion, your nationality, your political affiliation. It just all just goes away, because when you start to become conscious, you start to realize that it's all bull, right? It's all just a bunch of malarkey. Like, it's just nonsense. It's just nonsense. It's nothing but different things to divide us. It's nothing but different things to make us think ill of the next person. Oh, well, she's not Baptist, she's Catholic, so, you know, those Catholics, they do this, they do that, and the priests and all this and all that, right? Or, you know, so-and-so, you know, they are Hispanic, you know, and so they must do this, XYZ, right? Or even if you're of a, you know, you're like, you know, hey, you know, I hear black people do blah, blah, blah. Insert whatever negative connotation that you may have on these, you know, another race, right? Or a different nationality, right? You just start to let it go. Once you have had a spiritual awakening, you just let it all go. And all of that is your ego. Your ego is nothing but a combination or a culmination of basically your past, of basically all these belief systems that you have put in place, that you feel are who you are, right? And a lot of it you can just let go. Like when you've had an awakening, you get to a point where it's like, it's not that you don't see race, it's just that you don't hold race, or you're being one race or the other, or somebody else being of another race. You don't hold it on any particular level anymore. It has no significance. Like, you just like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Like, your religion doesn't matter. You know, you just start seeing people as like, okay, you're XYZ religion, fine, but what does that have to do with me, sort of thing, right? It's like, you are whatever political affiliation, but what does it have to do with me? Like, what does it have to do with anything? And once you like wake up, you see that, oh my God, you start seeing the news and you're like, oh my God, it is complete programming. Like it's put here in place to just divide us. When I had my experience with having to dissolve the ego, it came by way of one of the things and ways that another way that you'll know if you're dissolving your ego is when you get to this point of oneness. Like you just want to be, like you see everybody as equals. Like you see all races, all religions, all political affiliations. You see all of us as just like, we're just all equal. Like it's no divisions. Nobody's better than the other person, right? You just feel this sense of like community. You feel this sense of just oneness. You feel this just like connection with everyone, right? The other thing that you'll realize when you're just dissolving your ego is people no longer, like you no longer put yourself as a hierarchy. You no longer put yourself as like, I'm better than the next person because of blank. I'm better than the other person because of this or that, right? You also don't put yourself at a hierarchy when it comes to like who you are. For instance, if you are somebody's mother, right? If you're somebody's father, you no longer put yourself in this position of, you know, I'm the father, you know, you do what I say because I'm the father. See, that's all ego. It's like, you know, I'm the father. I should have, you know, more respect or ultimate respect. You shouldn't do that, you know, if you're my child, because I'm your father, sort of thing. My experience with having to dissolve my ego initially came from the hierarchy portion. I was going through a family situation, and hopefully you guys will be able to either identify with something like this as a parent, or you'll be able to identify with it as the child. But how I was going through it was, I have an adult daughter, and there were some things that she had done, and or you know how you can kind of get into, you know, when they get in a teenage stage, they're just like, hey, I want to do what I want to do. And then, you know, now they're in their adult years, you know, they have gotten to a point where they have their own thing, and they have their own personalities. They've been having their own personalities, really. And again, your personality is your ego, right? And so you know, I was having a situation with my daughter where you know, things that she would do, I would feel like, wow, but I'm your mother. How could you do that to your mother? But I'm your mother. And when I started going through my awakening process, I had to get to a point where, when I first heard about this ego and dissolving your ego, I was going through that, and I was like, oh boy, yeah, like I felt like I was on this higher plateau, if you will. I felt like I was on this pedestal because I was her mother. You can't do this, you shouldn't do XYZ because I'm your mother. Not just you shouldn't do XYZ because I'm just another human like you. You just when you start dissolving your ego, you just let it go. You start to see yourself as, I'm no better than anybody. Yes, did I give birth to her? Absolutely. Yes, you know, did she biologically come from me? Yes. But other than that, we're all human. We're all the same, right? She's gonna make mistakes. I make mistakes. Like you just start looking at things like, you know what? She doesn't owe me. When I started dissolving my ego, I had to, when I would get in that position of, you know, well, she can't do this to me because I'm the mother. She can't do that to me because I'm the mother. I got to a point where I just let it go. It was like, I'm just another person just like her. We're all the same. We're all one. I don't deserve special treatment just simply because I'm the mother. That's what I mean, you guys. I know it's like, it can be a lot to wrap your mind around, and it can be really, really difficult. Most people cannot get to this state of just letting it go, of just no longer allowing your ego to like just run complete control over you and your life. And it's such a very, it feels like relief has just been taken off of your shoulders. It feels like when you dissolve your ego, it just feels like you just, all of these beliefs, all of these things that you've been carrying around, that you got to be this way, you got to be that way, you're this, you're that. It's like when you just let it go, it's like then you no longer expect certain people to treat you this way or that way because you are of a hierarchy of I'm the mother, or I'm of a certain race, or I'm American, or you know, I'm this political affiliation, so I feel like I'm better. Like there's no more better. There's no more I feel like I'm better than, or I should be treated a special way because of XYZ. You just let it go. And it is so liberating, you guys. It is so liberating when you finally get to the point of we're all one. We're all one. It was so liberating for me because it really allowed me to no longer hoard resentment toward people, to no longer hoard anger or hold on to anger for something somebody did to me, because I felt like, how could you do that because of this? Or how could you do that because I'm this person, I'm that person, I'm all this ego, right? It was so freeing, because it was like, basically, what I was saying in my mind when I finally was like dissolving those big chunks of my ego, it was, I came to a feeling of, and I came to a perspective of, you're no better than anybody else in that person's life. I know, it's like, this one is hard, you guys, because it's like, all your life you've been taught that you grew up, you had parents. So it was always instilled in your mind from the very beginning that they were this hierarchy, and you can't do that to your parent, you can't do that to your parent, you know, that sort of thing. And you just let it all go, because if you're raised like that, and that's how most of us are, then when you have kids, you start having those same expectations, right? You start having those same expectations of, okay, now I'm the parent, and you can't talk to me this way, you can't treat me this way. And it's like, when you just let it go, you're no longer offended. You're no longer angry. When you let it all go, if and when they do something to you that you may think is just horrific, or that you may think is absolutely absurd, or you may think is absolutely disrespectful, when you get to the point of dissolving these huge chunks of your ego, when things like that happen, it's like, okay, it's like you can just take it. It's like off the shoulder. It's like, okay, it's like you taking an invisible punch and you just like bouncing back, you know, like those cartoons. It's like somebody just like bang 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 bang, and then the little cartoon character keeps coming back like boop, or it's like a rubber thing, I don't know what it is, but it just like keeps coming back, because it's like not phased, unaffected, like you just keep bouncing back, like you're no longer triggered by any of it. It's just like, it's almost, this is going to sound really harsh, but it is kind of like this. It's kind of like when you dissolve your ego, it's like, because you don't see yourself as somebody special or somebody so important anymore, it's kind of like you just kind of stop seeing yourself as the mother, the way the ego puts the mother. Like, because usually you're thinking, well, the mother, well, I am the mom, so what, I'm gonna stop being the mom? No, you don't stop being the mom as far as like, you know, whatever you feel like you want to do for that child. Like I've said before, if it makes you happy, absolutely do it. If it puts you in a good place to do those things, then do those things. If they make you feel happy when you're on the phone with them and all that, then do those things. And you're kind of like in mommy mode when you're giving them support and things like that, if that's what you choose to do. But dissolving the ego as far as when there's contrast, when there's conflict, try not to put yourself in this position of, how could they do this? I'm their parent. How could they do this? I'm their mother. I gave birth to them. That's the ego. Whether you need to work on dissolving the ego when it comes to things like that, as far as like your hierarchy or what you feel is your rank and what someone shouldn't do because you're this, you're the boss, you're the manager, you're whatever, you're, you know, whatever you're affiliated with. Or whether or not you just feel like, you know, you just, you know, constantly kind of separating yourself because you're like, because I'm this and I'm that and I'm this. Try and pay attention to that. I think you guys would be completely amazed at how often we, you know, have a tendency to let our ego just take complete control, you know, of the things that we do from day to day. Like, take complete control of how we interact with people, how we move with people, you know, because you're like, I'm this and she better not, and I'm, you know, and it gets into the, it gets in the way, right? Pay attention to how often you do that, and try to, you know, if you could start off just being aware of it. I do think that you got to get to a certain point though before you're even able to just start working on it. But I think if you at least become aware of it, that it's your ego, and you have to train your ego. You have to start dissolving your ego. The more you start dissolving your ego, the more you can start kind of peeling back these layers of this old you. The more you can start letting that new you come through and shine and grow. The more you can catch it, right? When somebody puts you in a position of contrast, when somebody brings some negativity to you, you know, ask yourself, or you really teed off how much of this has to do with what actually physically may have possibly happened to you, and how much of it is you're just like getting extremely pissed, and it's a mental pissed offness because you have put yourself in a position of, well, I'm on a higher level, or I'm better than them, or they should treat me this way because of this, that, and the other, whatever those beliefs you have. When you do start shedding all of those beliefs, you guys, it is just so beautiful, because you no longer judge. Like, you no longer judge people. It's just an eye-opening experience. Your perspective on things just changes completely. You no longer judge somebody based off of their race. You no longer judge somebody based off of their sexuality. You no longer judge people based off of their religion, their nationality. It's just love for everybody. You just let it go. You just start seeing everybody as, we all here just living our lives and we're all on our own life journeys, and you just start looking at everybody like we're all just doing the best we can do. You just start looking at people like that. You just start believing like they probably are struggling, or they probably just went through something, but you still just kind of come back to, we're all just doing the best we can do, and we all just trying to navigate the best way we can through this thing we call life. I hope that helped some of you guys out there, especially like when it comes to the parent-child dynamic. If you're the parent, if you can try to put yourself in that position of, I'm no better, or I don't deserve to be on any more of a hierarchy than that child, right? Than that, adult child, right? So just something to get you guys to start thinking about, and let me know in the comments down below. Have you guys ever heard of dissolving your ego? Have you ever thought about this concept? Now that I've brought it up, have you thought back of some of your experiences that you've been very judgmental of somebody due to either their race or their nationality or their sexual preference? Let me know in the comments down below if you've ever felt like you needed to just release it all, just let go of those beliefs and just enjoy life. I'll see you guys on the next video. Bye.